All right, let's use a new example. I'm going to actually create a new file. It's going to be called switch.php. Let's start our PHP file. And we're going to set a variable called day. And day is going to equal Monday. Great. And we're going to do a little example. If day, parentheses, if day equals Monday, what should we do? We can echo that the French word for Monday is lundi. Okay? I'm going to do a \n at the end because \n at the end. So we get our space online. And there we go. And let's save it and let's run it. You can ls to make sure that it's there. There it is, switch.php. So let's do php switch.php. The French word for Monday is lundi. Okay? And then we could do Tuesday. Else if day equals Tuesday, echo the French word for Tuesday is mardi. And then else if. But that's a very complicated system that we don't necessarily want to do. There's a way easier way to do it, especially when you're doing values where there's only going to be so many different types of values. We will often call those, in other languages, they're called an enum, where you're going to have a variable that only has certain values. That happens a lot in our world, right? We could have days of the week. We could have directions on a compass. We could have states. We could have all these different things that qualify as a category. So what can we do? We can do something called a switch statement. And you know what else I didn't do? I didn't close this PHP. It worked, but that wasn't ideal. Okay, so let's use a switch statement. A switch statement looks like this. You type switch, then you type what you're comparing, then you do your curly bracket, and then what you do is you do something called a case. So I'm going to write case Monday, quote, colon. Oh, that's not the right key combination. So it looks like this. It's indented. Echo. The French word for Monday is lundi, and then we do something called a break. So you hit return, and you type break semicolon. Now you can type the next one, case Tuesday, colon, echo, the French word for Tuesday is mardi. Okay, and then we break, semicolon, and then we can put in the rest of our words if we want to. And at the end, we'll put one called default, which is essentially the else statement. So there's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a default. That's not a valid day. Okay? So let's go ahead and run this code. Whoops. Let's run this code. Let's The French word for Monday is lundi. Let's try Sunday. Save. The French word for Sunday is dimanche. What I did not do in my examples was put /ns. Sorry for that delay. /n /end. Save. Okay, so now when we run it, the French word for Sunday is dimanche. And now let's change it from Sunday to Thursday on purpose. Spell it incorrectly. Run it. That's not a valid day. Okay? So this is to replace all of the things that we would call, categorical data that we really want a value for, that has probably a limited amount of values, right? Like this isn't going to be things that are greater than, or things that are, or things that are less than, or something like that. Instead, or are things true. No, we're looking for values that are going to have set amounts, or if they're not, there's something that gets thrown back at the end. Logically, the way it works is that the switch statement gets called. It checks, is this true? Like, which one of these makes this true? Then it activates it, and then it breaks it. Then it breaks out and goes to here then. So it never executes this other code once it matches the correct one. All right, that is a switch statement. Now what I want to do is to move on to our next idea, which is getting a value from outside of the script.